You're still on Focus today here on TVRI World, and we still have more news for you to update. As a platform to build resilience and mitigate disaster risk, especially for disaster-prone countries in Asia-Pacific, the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction has officially begun today. Rahmat Idris is in Brisbane, Australia with the details.
Well, the welcoming ceremony for APM-CDRR, or the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reductions, was well underway this morning here at the Brisbane Convention and Exhibition Centre in Brisbane, Australia, which is a forum for nearly 4,000 delegates comprising of Excellencies ministers from around 40 countries within the region of Asia-Pacific, and also including private sectors representatives, businesses, government delegates and officials, private sectors, and most importantly academia for research, and local communities to take part, deliberating and sharing their experiences in mitigating disasters and sharing their experiences in reducing risk of disasters in their respective regions. At the welcoming ceremony this morning, speaking at the ceremony was the Premier of Queensland's Anastasia Palazzo, who spoke in retrospect the experience of Queensland as a region in Australia, which has seen in the past year alone over 100 natural disasters occurring in different places throughout Queensland. And those disasters happened at a variety of levels of intensity and devastation to the people, ranging from the bushfire all the way to the floodings, which is also here in Brisbane a few months back. It was experiencing a historical and massive breakout of floods, even downtown at the city centers of Brisbane. And that was quite an experience, trial and tribulations for the local people and also for the government to come up with stronger and better mechanism, better schemes in addressing challenges in mitigating disasters and overcoming all the tribulations throughout the occurrence of disasters in the region. And the Premier of Queensland also reiterated on the importance of going through with the COP26 goals that was agreed upon in Brisbane a while ago, which was a follow-through from the Glasgow COP26 last year, which is to reduce the carbon emissions. And thus, Queensland had made a target of reducing the use of carbon and also by that mechanism, so reducing the zero carbon emissions and reaching 50% of clean and renewable energy sources in the form of one of them solar power, and that will be 50% of solar power used by 2050 in Queensland alone, making it a stronger move towards the zero carbon emissions. And the city of Brisbane, we're reporting at the moment, will also be hosting the Olympic Games by 2032, making all the moves towards the cleaner, safer and more sustainable energy sources used in Brisbane City is all the more important ahead of that major sporting events and deliberations. And also speaking at the welcoming ceremony this morning for the APM-CDRR of 2022 here in Brisbane, Australia, was the special representatives for the Secretary General of the United Nations for Disaster Risk Reductions, Madam Mami Mitsutori. She reiterated the baselines of preparedness and resilience and building the capabilities of governments across the globe in addressing challenges and reducing the risk of disasters. She elaborated on the observations of UNDRR and how in the past couple of years alone, many of the government's budgets across the countries have been focused towards the process of recovery of disasters. And seeing this, a change of mindset and way of thinking should be made immediately. These budgets should be allocated instead towards the efforts of anticipating disasters, meaning that being more prepared, increasing and scaling up investments towards the preparedness and efforts to reduce the risk of disasters. She mentioned that the financial supports from national governments across the globe should be made more available towards systems, projects and products to reduce the risk of disasters in the future. And thus, she mentioned that now that we are currently going through the midterm review process of the Sendai framework, which is the global protocols to address the challenges of disasters and to reduce the risk of disasters, the midterm review is an opportunity for these countries who have adopted these Sendai frameworks, hundreds of countries, to sort of go forward with the review and being able to see how far they have come in terms of mitigating disasters and reducing the risk. So she calls upon government to move ahead and project more and use the findings of the review of Sendai projects or Sendai frameworks rather to find measures to sort of curb the risk of disasters, and how all of these countries should come together not only to reduce risk of disasters but also to be able to better achieve sustainable development goals by 2030 and fill the targets of a Sendai framework. And lastly, the Minister for Emergency Management of Australia, who's also the Minister for Agriculture, Fishery and Forestry of Australia, Murray Watts, also explained on how some of the most advanced and well-versed countries in handling disasters like Australia can still be devastated by massive major natural disasters, and that was the case of Brisbane a few months back in handling massive disasters. And thus Australian government under the new Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, which was appointed a few months back, will continue to play an active role in contributing to the regional efforts in addressing and mitigating challenges of disasters and reducing risk. And this year alone, the government of Australia has made financial budget support available in the form of 5 million Australian dollars towards Southeast Asia through the Mekong Foundations to preserve clean water sources, and another 50 million Australian dollars to help out the disaster risk mitigations in the Pacifics. And from Brisbane, Australia, Rahmat Idris and Boni Mokalu for TVR World.